I'm going to be reading more of this book. The Day the Dollar Died. By Paul McGuire. It's cold outside, but I'm rather hot because I'm doing this. And it's always good to talk about God and that. God's been great lately with me. Fantastic. So, what am I on? I'll go back. Shall I read this bit? What's the bit before that? Yeah. Brainwashing and the occult. It is the absolute right of the state to supervise the formation of public opinion. Joseph Paul Goebbels, Nazi propaganda minister for Adolf Hitler, said that. Going all the way back to ancient Babylon and the Tower of Babel, the mystery religions of ancient Egypt, Greece and India practiced occultism, which is a term that means hidden knowledge. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is one of the most ancient manuscripts on the occult, contains a description of rituals that use torture and intimidation to create trauma and make a person's mind snap. In these occult teachings, the use of mind-altering drugs, which the Bible calls pharmakia, and the casting of spells causes a total domination of the human personality. These practices are part of the occult, mysticism and Satanism. Adolf Hitler used psychedelic drugs which opened his personality to the control of demonic powers. In 1921, the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations was set up to study mind control in human beings. The German psychologist Kurt Lewin, a German psychologist, was the director of the Tavistock Institute. About a decade later, with the rise of the occultic Third Reich, or Reich, is that how you pronounce it, I don't know, Third Reich, we'll say, Nazi, Germany began intensive research into mind control using principles from neuropsychology and parapsychology and multi-generational occultism. Secretly high-ranking members of British society began sharing their research with the Nazis. People in the highest echelons of British society and high-ranking members of the Nazi Party were involved in secret occult societies such as the Order of the Golden Dawn. Since the Nazis had no restraints, they were able to conduct what can only be described as satanic behaviour at concentration camps like Auschwitz under the direction of Dr. Joseph Mengele in the most sadistic fashion possible. Mengele conducted brainwashing experiments involving extreme torture, shock therapy, bizarre surgical operations without the use of anaesthetics, drugs like mescaline and unspeakable acts of cruelty to break the personalities of young children and adults in order to control, their minds. In order to compete with the Soviet Union after World War II, the US Department of Defense secretly brought in many of the top German Nazi scientists in rocketry and mind control. The American public did not know about the importation of Nazi mind control scientists with occult ties. The code name for this operation was Operation Paperclip. Some people allege that the CIA began to conduct mind control experiments on American young children and adults. One such mind control experiment was called Project Monarch, where adults and children were programmed through torture, sexual abuse and drugs to be Manchurian candidates. When asked about this in an interview by Anton Chaikin, a writer for the New Federalist magazine, former CIA Director William Colby allegedly said, "What about Monarch?" He replied angrily and ambiguously, "We stopped that between the late 1960s and the early 1970s. Movies are filled with themes about mind control and Manchurian Candidate type programming of human beings like Long Kiss Goodnight, Lawnmower Man, Enemy of the State, Conspiracy Theory, The Ninth Configuration, 12 Monkeys and many others. The technology of mind control has evolved in the same manner as computer technology and biotechnology. Also, there is a direct connection between occult practices and mind control technology. We are being indoctrinated through managed crisis to welcome a one world economic system, a one world government and a microchip implant. It is not by coincidence that the false prophet in the book of Revelation leads a coming one world religion which causes the people to worship the Antichrist. It is the same false prophet who somehow links this occult religious system to making people receive this mark of the beast in order to buy, sell and participate in the economic system. This relationship between the occult, technology, economics and mind control is key to understanding what is going to happen in the future. In America, this information has also been hidden. Occasionally, the truth emerges, as when the Senate held hearings about the CIA's MK Ultra program. Young children and adults were being subjected to brutal brainwashing techniques and deliberately given powerful psychedelic drugs like LSD. To its credit, the CBS program 60 Minutes did a special exposing the government's experimentation on soldiers with LSD. On the Senate floor in 1977, Senator Ted Kennedy said, "The deputy director of the CIA revealed that over 30 universities and institutions were involved in an extensive testing and experimentation program which included covert drug tests on unwitting citizens at all social levels, high and low, Native Americans and foreign. At least one death, that of Dr. Frank Olson, resulted from these activities. The agency itself acknowledged that these tests made little scientific sense. The agents doing the monitoring were not qualified scientific observers. Senator Ted Kennedy made these opening remarks during the August 3, 1977 meeting of the US Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research of the Committee on Human Resources. Most Americans have seen glimpses of how this technology works by understanding modern advertising, the brainwashing techniques of cults, hypnotism and the effects of certain drugs. What most people in the world do not know is that this very technology is being used on them. Perhaps on more subtle but just as transforming levels for those who are skeptical about such things as the MKULTRA experiments. Author John Marks filed a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request in order to do research for his book The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, The CIA and Mind Control, The Secret History of the Behavioral Sciences, 1979. The information is available through the National Security Archive in the Gelman Library at the George Washington University, labelled Inventory CIA Behaviour Experiments Collection, John Marks Donation, in brackets, date range 1940s to 1970s. The Occult Science and It is a strategic effort to establish a scientific elite who would rule our society. The Fabian socialists set out to attack the Bible, the family and Christian morality. Fabian Lord Bertrand Russell, who joined with the Frankfurt School in this effort at mass social engineering, said in his 1951 book entitled The Impact of Science on Society, of these the most influential is what is called education. Religion plays a part through a diminishing one. The press, the cinema and the radio play an increasing part. It may be hoped that in time anybody will be able to persuade anybody of anything if he can catch the patient young and is provided by the state with money and equipment. The subject will make great strides when it is taken up by scientists under a scientific dictatorship. The social psychologists of the future will have a number of classes of children, of school children, on whom they will try different methods of producing an unshakable conviction that snow is black. Various results will soon be arrived at. First, that the influence of home is obstructive. Second, that not much can be done unless indoctrination begins before the age of 10. Third, that verses set to music and repeatedly intoned are very effective. Fourth, that the opinion that snow is white must be held to show a morbid taste for eccentricity. That's it. But I anticipate it is for future scientists to make these maxims precise and discover exactly how much it costs per head to make children believe that snow is black, and how much less it would cost to make them believe it is dark grey. Once this technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for a generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need of armies or police. The populace will not be allowed to know how its convictions were generated. Essentially, Russell was saying that through this scientific mind control, it would be possible for new generations to call good evil and evil good. So many so-called Christian leaders are completely naive and asleep to what has happened, is happening and is going to happen. There has been an all-out siege planned with military precision against God, His Word, the family and the biblical world view. Our present day world is not the product of some random chance. The fact that in this next generation we may produce only 4% of our children to be true Christians is not an accident. The hour is very late. The hour is very late, but there is still time to rise from our slumber. With God, all things are possible. The occult connection. In 1881, the Fabian Socialist Society was called the Fellowship of New Life. Far from simply being a socialist and humanistic organisation, the Fabian Socialists, like the Communists and the Nazis, and they had occultic roots. The group held Kingdom Now ideas, and its first president was the Christian leader Brooke Westcott. Around the same time period, Arthur Balfour and members of the Rothschild banking family belonged to the Society of the Elect. The Fabian Socialist Society was formed immediately after the formation of the Occultic Society for Physical Research, 1882 in brackets. Brooke Westcott and Fenton Hort, along with Arthur Balfour, were involved in other were involved in both organisations.